be back in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I can't tell you how important this is to me and to Vice President Biden. We both have a lot of memories of Scranton and Lake Winola, that's right. And it is such a nostalgic trip for me because my brothers are here. We came to Lake Winola every summer of my life and loved every minute of it. And there are a lot of people in this crowd who our family has known or Joe's family has known over the years, and we are grateful to each and every one of you. It's also wonderful to be here in Scranton with Senator Bob Casey. And your Congressman, Matt Cartwright. And your amazing Lackawanna County Recorder of Deeds, Evie Rafalco McNulty. And we sure miss that husband of yours. We're thinking about you and sending you our best wishes. We're also here with Auditor General Eugene Del Pasquale, too. And of course, as I said, I'm here with the one, the only, Vice President Joe Biden. You know, Joe grew up over on North Washington Avenue. No matter how far he travels, he never forgets where he's from. I have seen him in a lot of settings, in the spotlight as vice president and senator, in quiet moments with constituents, and in the Situation Room, helping to make decisions that affect our lives and security. And wherever he goes, he's always the same guy. A fighter for everyone who needs a champion, for towns like Scranton, and above all, a fighter for families. And you know, I think he'd be the first to say that he cares about your families because of his family. Joe Sr. and Catherine taught Joe that all people deserve to be treated with dignity. When you see someone fall, you help them back up because we are all in this together. That is the Biden way. We have seen how he fights for working families because he passionately believes in the basic bargain that makes America great, that our economy should work for everyone, not just those at the top. And he stands up against injustice. He has led the fight to end violence against women and girls. And he stands up for people's lives and health, including the project he's now leading on behalf of President Obama, the Cancer Moonshot, to fund breakthroughs and save lives. As many of you know, his wonderful son, Beau, a great father, a great public servant, a great human being, passed away last year. So this is personal to Joe Biden. He knows it's personal to a lot of families. That's why he's fighting so hard to make a difference. And if I'm elected this fall, I'm going to ask Joe to continue the important work he's begun to help us fight and defeat cancer. So as someone who's worked with Joe for years, first in the Senate, then as a member of the Obama-Biden cabinet, I can attest that passion for standing up for people, trying to make lives better. It's what pushes him to work as hard as he can every second of every day for all of us. And Joe and his wonderful wife, Jill, have raised their children and grandchildren with those same values. So, Joe, I hope you know how much, not just Scranton, but America loves you and your family. So it means a great deal to have him by my side. You know, when Joe and I were deciding where to have our first campaign rally, there really was only one answer. Scranton isn't just Joe's hometown, it's my dad's hometown too. While the Bidens were on North Washington Avenue, my family, the Rodhams, were a few blocks away on Diamond Avenue. I was christened at the Methodist Church on Court Street. My grandfather went to work at the Scranton Lace Mill starting as a teenager. It wasn't easy work, but you know what I learned? That business treated its workers right, believe it or not. The Scranton Lace Company, all those years ago, actually offered a profit-sharing plan and health benefits at the beginning of the 20th century. They understood something that a lot of folks have forgotten. They understood that their workers were responsible for much of the business's success, so it was only fair that they shared in that success and that their families benefited too. And because of that job, my grandfather could give my father a better life. My father was able to go to college, went to Penn State where he played football. Then, after he got out of Penn State, it was 1935, right in the depths of the Depression, and he was looking for a job. He heard a friend of his knew somebody who heard that somebody was hiring in Chicago, so he literally hopped a freight train from Scranton to Chicago. I don't recommend that anymore. Where he got a job as a salesman. He went into the Navy during World War II, and when he got out, he started a small business in Chicago, where I grew up. And just like his father before him, my dad was determined to give us even greater opportunities than he had. And to me, that is the American dream. No matter where life takes me, I always remember I am the granddaughter of a factory worker and the daughter of a small business owner, and I am so proud of it. And you know, the story of the Rodhams and the Bidens isn't unique. What's unique is the country where those stories were written. No matter what Donald Trump says, America is great, and the American dream is big enough for everyone to share in its promise. But that doesn't mean we can take it for granted and just wait till it happens to us. We have a lot of work to do. Here in Scranton, you know that. President Obama and Vice President Biden pulled us back from the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression and put our economy back on a stronger footing. I personally don't think they get enough credit for that. Under their leadership, we've created 15 million new private sector jobs. 20 million people now have health care, and the auto industry just had its best year ever. So I think the job of the next president is to build on that, but to take on the deeper challenges that emerged long before the crisis and have persisted through our recovery. Inequality is too high. Wages are too low. It is still too hard for too many to get ahead. So my top priority is creating an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the top, which is why I've set 5 ambitious goals to get us there. First, we're going to make the biggest investment in new, good-paying jobs since World War II. Second, we're going to make college debt-free for all and help millions of people struggling with existing student debt. Third, we're going to crack down on companies that ship jobs and profits overseas. And we're going to reward companies that share profits with their employees like the Scranton Lace Company did almost a century ago. Fourth, thank you. Fourth, we're going to make sure that Wall Street corporations and the super rich finally pay their fair share of taxes. And fifth, we're going to respond to the way American families actually live and work today by making child care affordable, because in today's economy, there is often no parent or grandparent staying home with the kids. And we're going to fight for paid family leave, because sometimes you need to take care of your child or your spouse or sick parent, and you should not lose your job for taking care of the loved one. Now, you know, whenever I mention these issues, you know, Donald Trump always said that I'm playing the woman's card. Well, you know what I say? If playing the woman's card is deal me in. I really believe that together this plan will go a long way toward building a stronger, fairer economy where everyone can contribute to its growth, everyone can share in its rewards. Now, by contrast, what's Trump's plan? Well, he laid it out last week. And I'll admit, even before he did, I didn't think it was going to be good for working Americans. But it turned out to be worse than I ever imagined. I know some of you may have friends up here in northeastern Pennsylvania who are thinking about voting for Trump. You know, I know. Friends should not let friends vote for Trump. Just in case you can have a conversation, explain that Donald Trump would give trillions, that's trillions with a T, in tax cuts to big corporations, millionaires, and Wall Street money managers. That would explode the national debt. And it would lead to massive cuts in things like education and health care. He's even called for a new tax loophole. Let's call it the Trump loophole, because it would allow Trump to pay less than half the current tax rate on income from many of his companies, a pretty sweet deal. He would end up paying a rate lower than millions of middle-class families. Now, that is assuming he pays any taxes at all, because we really don't know since we haven't seen his tax returns. But we do know, just by looking at the data, we know that the 400 richest taxpayers in America would get an average tax cut of more than $15 million a year from the Trump loophole. And then, of course, there's the estate tax that Trump wants to eliminate altogether. Now, if you believe that he's as wealthy as he claims, that would save the Trump family $4 billion. But it would do nothing for 99.8% of all the other Americans in our country. So, yeah, $4 billion tax cut for Trump, 99.8% of Americans get nothing. Think of what we could do with those $4 billion. We could pay for more than 47,000 veterans to get a 4-year college degree. We could provide a year's worth of health care to nearly 3 million kids, Or we could fund a year's worth of federal assistance to state and local law enforcement. So there are a lot of better ways to spend the money. And there's one more part of Trump's plan I want to mention. He's now saying he wants to help people pay for child care by excluding those payments from taxation. Well, again, guess who that will help the most? It will help rich people who will get 30 or 40 cents on the dollar to pay for their nannies. Hardworking families who can't afford child care in the first place will get little to no real help. That's why his child care plan has been panned by experts across the political spectrum, left, right, and center. Because remember, right now, child care costs as much as in-state college tuition in most of the country. So we need real solutions that will work for working people, not just the well-off. And to prove that he really cares about this issue, Trump made a point of talking about how his businesses offer on-site child care to workers. Well, that kind of perked me up. Because if he really did that, it would be a big deal. I wish more companies would provide on-site child care. That would be a huge benefit for employees, but like so much of what he says, it's not true. It turns out some of his resorts, hotels, and clubs offer child care services, but for guests, not employees. Just saying. If you stay at a Trump hotel, you can enroll your kid in something called Trump Kids. They will get special children's room service, children's spa services, even a nanny for a fee. But if you work for his business, if you clean the rooms, water the lawns, carry people's bags, you get nothing. I'm not even sure Trump knows that providing a Trump Kids program for paying customers is not the same thing as providing real child care for your workers. Just like his tax breaks for billionaires aren't the same as a real plan to help America's working families. You know, Vice President Biden has a saying I love: don't tell me what you value, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value. So it's pretty clear Donald Trump wants to give trillions of tax breaks to people like himself, not invest in our veterans, our kids, our police officers, our teachers, and anyone who really provides services. And we face real serious challenges in America. We need serious leadership. This is not a reality TV show. It's as real as it gets. Look at what's happening in Milwaukee right now. We've got urgent work to do to rebuild trust between police and communities and get back to the fundamental principle: everyone should have respect for the law and be respected by the law. So on all these important challenges, you have to ask yourself, is Trump up to the job? He's giving a speech. He's giving a speech about ISIS today. Now, I've laid out my strategy for defeating ISIS over many months. We will strike their sanctuaries from the air and support local forces taking them out on the ground. Under President Obama and Vice President Biden, we are making progress. We will surge our intelligence so we detect and prevent attacks before they happen. We will disrupt their efforts online to reach and radicalize young people in our country. It won't be easy or quick, but make no mistake, we will prevail. There is no doubt in my mind. And once again, in comparison, Donald's been all over the place on ISIS. He talked about letting Syria become a free zone for ISIS, a major country in the Middle East that could launch attacks against us and others. He's talked about sending ground troops, American ground troops. Well, that is off the table as far as I am concerned. So we'll wait and see what he says today. But, you know, sometimes he says he won't tell anyone what he'll do because he wants to keep his plan, quote, secret. And then it turns out the secret is he has no plan. And that was very clear when he said, I know more about ISIS than the generals. No, Donald, you don't. And on top of that, he says more countries should have nuclear weapons, including in the Middle East. He talks about walking away from our European allies. He has the temerity to say that the United States military is a disaster. Well, I wish he'd spent as much time as Joe and I have meeting the brave young men and women who serve in the military, meeting their families, meeting with Gold Star families. Those are not the words of someone who respects our military and the sacrifice that our young men and women make every single day. Look, I said in Philadelphia that a man you can bait with a tweet is not a man you can trust with nuclear weapons. It's also not a man you can trust to run our economy, help heal our cities, or be a role model for our children. There is no doubt Donald Trump is temperamentally unfit and totally unqualified to be President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief. So, my friends, America deserves a president who can get the job done, bring our country together, not tear it apart, deliver real results for hard-working Americans. And we can't win this election without you. That's why I'm asking you to join right now. Take out your phone and text JOIN, J-O-I-N, to 47246, or go to HillaryClinton.com. We are hiring organizers right here in Pennsylvania and across the country. We are going to run a vigorous campaign across Pennsylvania. We're going to keep building the future that you and your families deserve. And I am so sure we can do this, especially with this man fighting alongside us, just like he always has. So, Scranton, please, let's give it up for the Vice President of the United States, Joe